I remember what I said multiple chapters ago about Mora, how even if he was the first to really go down, then I would still like him. And he wasn't first to go down. Luckily, Orc was taken down first since we saw the Shiki fight first. So Mora at least got second. That's at least something good, which I feel like after what we saw, Mora is stronger than Orc. So maybe because kind of like Orc took Overdrive Shiki. Either way, I think that he could actually still be like a comparable of a guy with Mora. And I like that he's at least gonna be memorable in like his whole tier of like the first of Nero's men we see, first of his soldiers that we see come out here. Because like I realized like a couple chapters ago that it's like I like this guy's like goofy design. I think he just looks neat, but this is the very first group, so they're probably gonna just be beaten and then never shown again. So my whole value on his character beyond this point is maybe we'll see him again later, but this is probably it for poor Mora. Anyway, I thought this chapter was really good. I like Homora. I've said before my favorite female in this series is currently Homora, with my favorite male being probably Jin. Like, she's a really good character already, and one thing about like Hiro Mishima is he really likes to spread his characters, like his main cast backstory, throughout the series. Like, he doesn't want to just have it all very early. He has like each character spread. Like, one of them you get probably very early, like Fairy Tail we had Lucy, in Wraith Master we had Musica, and then in, for the most part, Eden Zero we got Rebecca. But obviously we don't know entirely about Shiki, and there's lots of other stuff we don't know about Weiss. But Homora, pretty much we got Homora's backstory. The only thing we really could get more for Homora's origin story, like beyond like where we're at right now in this series, is like specific conversations she had with Valkyrie. There's not a whole lot that that we could have, essentially. Like, there's not a ton, because we already know like what each important part of her life. We know about her parents and stuff. I doubt her dad has any significance, but Homora, like Homora's character is already really good. And that's one of the like the really strong things, I think, when you have like Hiro Mishima early in the series. You know that there's a lot more to come, but he makes sure to ground out like a really good character early on. Like how even in like mid area, like early like 40s to 60s, Gray was pretty good because his backstory in Glood Island, and then Urza like had a really strong backstory after like how good Tower Heaven was. And that's how I feel Rebecca is right now with after the whole Sun Jewel arc. I've really enjoyed Homora's character since then. Like, going up to it, she was really enjoyable, just was like a really fun, interesting character, and then finding all about her past and her kind of like taking on the mantle of her master, I think has just been really cool. And this chapter, I think, really displayed that with her using a different type of weapon to win, because it's kind of like her mastering her weapon to eventually kind of live up to the level also of her master, because she's now one of the 4 shining stars. She is her her master's rank in her in her space crew. I think that she just has like a lot of really fun potential just to see in the story for her personal kind of like hero's journey thing of strength. I think she's going to be just a really fun member of the character. Like, we got Shiki and Ziggy's whole kind of like Darth Vader and Luke kind of thing going on, but I do really like seeing Homora. I really like the whole main cast though overall, and I've said before, I think that's like Mishima's best quality. Like that's probably his best trick going to series, is how likable his main cast is and how like interesting all of their own backstories are and how they kind of progress throughout the story. But Mora, for the most part, Mora was pretty, actually, like, he was pretty intimidating. Like, I could see him being a real threat to certain characters. Like, he's got fair intangibility, he's got a very weird fighting style. On top of just being kind of like the sticky glue thing, he can like heat up his glue to do like burn damage. and the whole trait of glue, so he can like stick people to things and just do a lot of odd attacks. So I thought he was actually pretty formidable, and it's me trying really hard to cope with the fact that he's probably never gonna show up again, because this is Mora's entire empire. Like he owns a cosmos. He's probably got tens of thousands, if not millions, of soldiers or something, or he's probably got like millions of soldiers, and then probably has like 10,000 on Mora's level or something ridiculous. Like he's probably just got this dude as like fodder throwaway essentially overall. Like it's poor Mora. Now that I really think about it, and like all these guys like Orc and Brittany both seem cool, but I don't know, something about Mora's weird ass Victorian Willy Wonka design I just thought was really funny. But Homora like fighting him and then decides to do a new sword form. I thought she was gonna like maybe start getting the point like part way into going to overdrive, where her ether lines would start to kind of leave her body, the way that Shiki's did, and then the way that Jin's kind of does, where it's kind of the ether lines are kind of flowing in an unnatural way. Because hers is kind of different, because hers are always out of her body, but hers are like she's wielding the ether lines. But you know what, hers will probably have some weird extra long growth weird way, the same way that theirs is. Like maybe hers will start to kind of like spread around her body like armor or something, or like maybe like these claws will turn and like kind of have shoulder pads or something, or I don't know, maybe like extra blades. I don't know, I'm kind of odd with hers. Like everything is odd with hers essentially. I'm kind of like just figuring out like what would hers even probably be, because when you think about like every other character would have it as a sign, it's like, oh, their ether line's starting to leave their body. Homora's is already out there, so like Homora's is like this extra weird way that it's probably going to progress. But she actually just had to figure out how to fight her opponent. She had to figure out like, what do I need to do in order to defeat this guy? Because Homora has been displayed like she's not the smartest. She's not like, she doesn't seem, I wouldn't say dumb, but she seems kind of just, doesn't get it a lot of the time. She's just maybe a little bit thick-headed often, but she's a good character nonetheless. But I like that kind of weird, maybe kind of what do they call it, airhead kind of personalities or something. But she's ends up doing this sick like Wolverine form with her powers, and like with her soul blade. And I thought that was really cool, because her other ones, like her long sword and then her like two little short swords, I thought like the short swords, it'll just be different swords. Like, oh yeah, maybe one will be kind of like a broadsword, or maybe one will be like kind of like a scimitar or something. But it's actually just different bladed weapons. So she has these kind of cool tiger claw weapons, and everyone's making the jokes that she's got like the Wolverine claws. But it is really cool, because I think those originate from I think it's an Indian weapon or something. I think it's called the tiger claw or something. I'm guessing that's why the attack is called Tiger Six Claw Strike. I would assume. I had to look it up. I've seen it before, but I think it's just a really cool weapon. But at the same time, like, Homora is still losing. Like when she pulls out the weapon, you think, okay, I pulled out like one of my few weapon forms that I have, because she's not like Urza, because Urza had a whole bunch of different armors and weapons, but she doesn't have like as many techniques as Homora. Like she doesn't usually fight as long in each of her weapon forms as Homora. Homora is more on like the martial art like style of each of the weapons she wields, whereas Urza's like is the variety of different weapons, and then still is like general like mastery of the weapon itself, but not of like the different styles. Like it's like a weird way that I think it will make more sense like when we see Homora way further progressed with each of her styles. Like I feel like each of hers will eventually look like forms. Like she's just wearing different kind of actually no, because again hers is also weird, because would she have different overdrive forms? Because hers are all different. Like I guess it's still the same color. So it would probably just be like the weapons themselves would have a different shape actually in our overdrive. That makes way more sense. I'm glad that I didn't go down another confused kind of rabbit hole of Homora's like ether gear difference. But she usually, when you think that you pull out the new thing, then she's gonna like dominate, but it's like, oh no, she still can't get past his intangibility because he has an elemental body. It's glue. It's obviously not an element, but that's kind of what it's called, because elemental intangibility isn't like full intangibility. Full intangibility is kind of more like what Obito could do, where he's pretty much making his existence in another dimension where he's fully not tangible at all. Otherwise, maybe I think tiers of like you could do it with spatial manipulation too, but either way, it's like way different than elemental tangibility. That's why like the elemental version is kind of just tacked on there. But you know, he doesn't have a physical body while he's using this, so her abilities, like, she doesn't have anything kind of crazy that like lets her, you know, do a whole lot of extra damage. Like, she for the most part is just different weapons and how she's fighting with them. Like, Homora doesn't have any kind of hacks at the moment, kind of like, as the easy way to kind of say it. Kind of like, you know, if you had, you know, a character that could damage souls or do like spatial stuff that like just elemental, something that elemental intangibility wouldn't really matter. And I fumbled on that so hard because it's such a like power scalar, like strung up set of words. But anyway, talking about Homora, she can't figure out what to do. Like, just changing her attack style's not working. I like that even after she was getting hurt and like getting tormented by Mora, that she was still trying to figure out a way to win. She hadn't like just given up. And not only did she figure out how to win, she figured out how to win not just in straight, oh yeah, you know, slashing in her attacks, just doing a different technique. She started to think outside of that, and she's like using the environment in a large way. And I think that's really cool, because it's not just, oh yeah, she did this kind of trick on him. It's her evolving as a fighter. I think is really cool, the way that it was kind of displayed. It was something as easy as her getting her feet kind of like a little bit underneath the dirt, and then she's like, okay, kick a bunch of dirt at him, so all the dirt kind of just layers over him. Because again, when I said glue isn't really an element, but it's kind of classified in there, because it's like if he was made of like fire or something, or you know, any form of like non-physical kind of type. Like, I can kind of compare it to like One Piece. Like, you have Katakuri and you have someone like Sabo, and you know, you throw some like rocks at Sabo, it's gonna go through him because it's fire, and if it's you know, Katakuri, it's just gonna hit him because it's still made of something that isn't, that it kind of is like a type of elemental intangibility, but you still have the physical existence, but it's like you have a way to kind of like avoid attacks, or no, just turn into your element in general to your advantage, kind of thing. It's kind of like a weird difference, and like how each of these kind of peer away from like actual intangibility. Again, I don't want to go into like weird power level terms and stuff, but her covering him up in, you know, getting all this dirt and grass and everything just all on top of him and sticking to him, it starts to, you know, cover his vision, you know, gets in his mouth, it probably messes his breathing, but also he's like, oh, you're gonna try and run away when I get all just kind of stuck up and stuff. And then he just, you know, turns back to normal, so all this dirt and everything just falls off him. And Homora planned this. She waited for him to turn off his ether gear, turn off his ability, and then just instantly blitzes him and cuts him up, just instantly gets him. And I liked in the fight, actually, in multiple parts, Homora is like going for the kill. She's trying to take this guy out. Like, when she tries to do both claws in the chest, like, that would have killed him. Like, Homora just went and took him straight down after that. And I really liked it, because it showed her being smart. She realized she'll cover him up, and then right when he turns back to normal, just go in and take him down before he can turn his abilities back on. And again, it's really good because it's Homora evolving as like a fighter. Because when you compare the two, like comparing the two characters, and again, it's not that the series are very different, but it's easy to compare because it's, you know, it's a Hiro Mishima series, so there are similarities to a degree enough to compare them. Obviously, like, because I'm gonna say with Urza, like, because Urza and Homora, very different stories already. They only have like the similarity of like they both use bladed weapons, and then sort of with their mom. Irene's a completely way more complex story than Kurenai, but their personal characters and like their own stories are way different beyond that, obviously. But like the idea of them, like in like a very base concept, is similar, so you can kind of compare that. And then being Hiro Mishima, it's good to at least use this. Like with Urza actually started out way above the main cast, and you don't have her kind of like in that level of like journey of growth until way later on than like the main cast. Whereas like Homora is around the level of the main cast, and her whole thing is her kind of like becoming like living up to her master's title. And I think that's really cool, because it makes way more of a difference that we see her at a much lower level than like where we got Urza early on in Fairy Tail. Because Urza was already S-class, she was already like pretty powerful for the most part. Homora is still like hasn't even gotten close to overdrive. She's just like above like probably like a standard level. She still has a ways to go. And like I said, I think it's way more beneficial to her character, like her personal character and her role in the story early on, rather than getting her way later. I think that was a really good move. And I like that makes a big difference between even ever comparing her story to Urza's, beyond like, again, the very base root of their character. And it's nice that people are starting to really stop comparing the two series, because I love both series. I really love Hiro Mishima's series. I love Rave Master, love Fairy Tail, love Eden Zero. And it's annoying when people try and compare them in a negative way. And then it's annoying when people try and compare them in a negative way that doesn't make any sense at all. The ones that don't make sense are the worst ones, because it's like, at least the people that try and make sense in a negative way have probably at least tried to read the series. When you get something like, it'd be like if somebody tried to compare, like saying, if somebody have said Urza and Homora's backstories were the same. It's like anybody who's actually read both stories, that's like, no, really they aren't. Like the base character design, and then literally the very beginning of their story just having to do with their mom, and that's it. Everything beyond that is completely different to a massive degree. And it's nice people have stopped that. I think with Eden Zero's anime announcement, and then more people have been getting into the series lately and seeing that it's really good. And then like you get the people that read Fairy Tail that didn't want to read it because they thought it was like just going to be the same series. They're like, oh, this is really good too. And then just as a small extra piece, then people are finding out more about Rave Master and starting that as well. So everything's going very well. I've seen a lot of like Mashima series positivity lately, and that's just been good in general. I think with all the just outright positive things that have been happening in his fandom, like all the stuff that they've been doing, like with Eden Zero, like, you know, Heroes last year, the Fairy Tail game, Eden Zero games coming up, Eden Zero anime coming up, the Fairy Tail manga still going, 100 Years Quest, like everything's just in a really good place. Like I and even in for Rave Master, like anytime Mishima, because he said he might do more Heroes, anytime he does Heroes, they get to see Rave Master characters again. Like pretty much once you get like into like Mishima's series, it's always just a good ride from there. Like you're always treated well from like the, you know, the source from Mishima and like all extensions of him. And I think on top of that, and then again like with the positive activity of the fandom, it's just been a very good place lately within like that whole sphere of fandoms. So I like that. And obviously Homora's been the character that I think people have for the most said best girl so far. Like I've seen way more people like I like Rebecca too. I like a lot of Hiro Mishima like female characters, but definitely like from Eden Zero I've seen more people going for Homora than like say Rebecca or like Witch or any of the other ones. Like I'm trying to think of definitely what is actually Sylph's been gaining some attention. I was gonna say definitely not Sylph, but I mean like Sylph actually has like a small growing fan base too. But either way, I don't like saying clean, so I'm just gonna stick with Sylph at least for now, because it's still a nickname for her to have, like her title essentially. But yeah, other than that though, good chapter. I really liked it. I think this is it's gonna be one of those chapters that way later on the line, like when Homora's way more powerful and way better of a fighter, we're gonna look back and be like, yeah, this is like this was a really good point of her kind of like her own personal progression. So that's gonna be cool. Plus I think that the cool like ninja like stance she has with this attack is really cool, because that is one thing about her as well, is she isn't whereas like again, I'm just gonna do a quick comparison to her and Urza. Like Urza's thing is weapon variety across the board, but Urza's like primarily uses just like swords in general, and hers is the knight, and she's kind of peered more sometimes towards like that whole vagabond look, but for the most part hers is just kind of weapons total but leans towards like armor. Whereas Homora's whole thing is she is like going for like didn't she say she wanted to be a knight but she became a samurai? Actually, I think that was a line she had when we first got her. I actually need to look back on that. I remember that being a really funny moment of her character early on. But her whole thing is like, it is obviously this kind of like Japanese warrior style, and obviously her having the full Japanese name, like her having this ninja essentially form, is really cool. I like that a lot. So good job from Hiromashima. I think this was really fun. I'm really looking forward to Rebecca's chapter, because Homora winning, like I wanted to read this chapter because I thought it'd be a cool fight, and obviously like I like Homora and I like Mora. It's kind of hard to say Homora and Mora, but I liked both of them, and I knew that Homora was gonna win. But like with Rebecca, I want to see how she wins. I'm kind of hoping she does like tries to dissipate Brittany, like she maybe like makes like a cyclone, because she's a like, you know, as smoke she turns into a cloud, could like kind of just dissipate her until she has to turn back to normal, and then takes her out, maybe like shoots her a couple times. I think that would be really cool. But hers is I really want to see, because I think that one's going to just be really interesting in general, of how Rebecca figures out how to win. Because Homora, I knew Homora would definitely, like, for the most part, be able to take this. I don't know how Rebecca's gonna do it. That's just my guess right now. Is like just try and use the fact that she's smoked to like her advantage. But anyway, other than that though, like I am really looking forward to this arc. I think this is gonna be really good. We've had a really strong start. I think the whole reveal of Shura being Poseidon's like the son of Nero is really cool, because I thought it was Poseidon Nero, like Poseidon was his name and then Nero was his last name, but I guess it's the opposite. And Shura is like a really weird thing, that it being his son while having the Demon King code and having a gravity ether gear. So I'm really looking forward to this this whole arc rather. And I mean, Mishima has always been a writer I've really liked, so I know I'm gonna like this just based off of like past record. So I'm really hyped to see how this goes. Also, Elsie coming in and the stuff with Justice is really hyped too. I really want to see how that whole storyline goes. Especially, I want to see Justice fight. I really want to see what his ether gear does. But anyway, other than that though, comment below, thumbs up the video. I'd really appreciate it if you would befriend the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed. So thank you all for listening. Bye.